I want to bring Joseph Backholm on. You know, we are. It blows my mind that states like Idaho, states that are supposedly super conservative, 65% votes for a president, a conservative president here in Idaho. Why are conservative states, Joseph, allowing drag kid events in their cities?
Yeah, that's a good question. Good to see you, Gabe. And actually, listening to that last conversation with Robert, I wanted to jump in. You should arrange a debate for the two of us, because I would love to have given a response to that. But another time, because I know we certainly share the goals there for education. Why are conservative states allowing drag queens? Well, you got to define a lot of the terms. What does it mean to be conservative these days? And maybe the best analogy I can come up with, you remember those lava lamps? You're a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
Those lava lamps, right? And there's these blobs in there, and they break apart, and then they break into small particles, and eventually they absorb back into one blob, right? That's how most people think, right or left. They're blob thinkers, which means they just get sucked into the largest mass around them inherently. The alternative to that is being like a rock thinker, where you have an anchor and that you are committed to the ideas that some things are true, even if every single person around me disagrees with that and tells me that's not true. I know that some things are true. And that's, of course, the Christian worldview, and that's the rock, the anchor that our lives are anchored to. But that is a Christian thing. That is not a conservative, liberal thing. There are people that I agree with on policy who just get there for very different reasons. That practically they're pragmatic. They just kind of have a libertarian streak. They like freedom, whatever that is. So we will reach the same conclusion on a lot of key issues. But ultimately, they are not anchored to something that is eternal, that they can go to and say, even if everybody disagrees with this is still true, that God is still correct. And I think that's what you're seeing in these so-called, conservative states, however you want to see that. And also, it's a function of the fact that these decisions are made locally, right? I mean, you might have a state that looks red and it's got blue areas, and you got a state that looks blue and it's got red areas. And so really this government is very local, and we honestly don't want a state or a federal government able to go in and tell parents what they're allowed to do with their kids in every case. We don't want that kind of micromanagement. The problem is the culture that would see a lot of parents who want to take their kids to a drag queen event, and there are other adults who want to watch children in a drag queen event. That's a much deeper problem to me.
Yeah, and I grant you, Boise is a liberal city. They actually have a Democrat mayor who supported the festival, or is supporting the festival. But even then, in our research and all this, so our Idaho's Health and Human Services department they pulled out of sponsoring, but come to find out, they'd actually been donating about $100,000 a year or so in various levels to the Boise Pride organization. And the Idaho Health and Human Services agency directly reports to Brad Little. Brad Little, it says Brad Little's directly responsible over this agency. And I know there's a lot of agencies that Brad's probably over, but here we are. We got conservative governors funding, these kind of events. And so I see little immune system in conservatives to even, resist the kind of shenanigans that are going on there.
And the reason is I think that people desperately want to be popular, and they'll see things that their gut tells them, oh, maybe that's not the best, but I don't want to fight. There's a difference between knowing what is right and the willingness to do what is right. And, even casting a vote in the privacy and safety of the ballot, booth, or, where if you fill out your kitchen tableware, that's a very different animal than seeing something in the culture, seeing something in your neighborhood, knowing that it's wrong and being willing to do something about it. It's a different level of courage. It's a different level of commitment to the ideas that we say we believe. And increasingly, even in places that are governed politically, in ways that we would say are more conservative, you still have a lot of people who are conservative kind of passively, and those who are willing to actually do something about harm that they see in their community. Progressivism, it's this gospel of tolerance. It operates much like the AIDS virus. right? The AIDS virus doesn't kill you. The AIDS virus destroys your immune system so that anything can kill you.
That's
and
right.
The gospel of tolerance has come in, and it's been so embedded in us, even the church, where we see it at such a high value that we've learned to not be judgmental or critical of anything, even things that are very destructive. And so it's destroyed our cultural immune system. And so we are now vulnerable to absolutely everything. So we've gotten to the point where adults could facilitate. I mean, literally every single adult in the community should see a child at a drag queen show and say, stop, start arresting people. But we have been so desensitized to bad things by this gospel of tolerance. We've been trained over decades of time not to be bothered by things that are very troubling.
Right. And what has struck me in all this, that desensitization thing is really important, is because one of the things that's struck me in all this is no conservatives really cared that much about there being a gay pride festival in downtown Boise. But once they found out that there were kids involved in drag shows, ages 11 to 18, that threw all the conservatives in a tizzy. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, conservatives would have had a problem with a gay pride festival. 20, probably more like 20 years ago. And now they don't have a problem with that, and now it's the kids that's getting them. The progressives have ran that kind of tolerance play on us, that AIDS, as you pointed out, on us in such a it's working on us.
The Overton window has been shifted. So, and if you had said, in 2012 when we were debating same-sex marriage, if social conservatives would have said, hey, if this happens, there's going to be kids in drag queen shows, everybody would have laughed hysterically about the alarmist. The slippery slope is so much slipperier than anyone dared to suggest, right? They couldn't have imagined this. But here we are, and now we're even, and if we see this, if we're exposed to it long enough, about 3 years from now, everybody will just kind of shrug to that too.
So what's the play here? What's the policy play? What's the political play that we do to get these things out of our cities and out of our states?
I don't know that this is a policy play. This is a cultural play. This is where you have to see leadership of people, because in their hearts, people know that this stuff is not right. But what people are afraid to do is do something about it, to oppose it. And fear and courage are contagious. And the more people stand around and allow this stuff to happen, and they see nobody objecting, the more the observers of that scenario just say, well, I guess this is something that we tolerate. But if we see people pushing back and saying, no, not in my town, this cannot happen, people will say, actually, those guys are right, and the drag queen folks are wrong. I'm on that side. And they will see, yeah, we should oppose this. But to the extent that we just kind of sit around and allow things to happen, well, you're going to see more of it.
Joseph, thanks for contributing to Waterbreak, man. Really appreciate your insight on this. You're all dressed nice for another show, so go at it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Gabe. Good to see you.
Yeah.